So in this video, we just want to go over how to break down a URL query string. Now we've seen this before, but I don't know if we're going to dig in as deep as we are today. Typically, this is done with a get string, which means a big long chunk of text is sent back to the server, and the server has to chop it up to figure out what's going on, kind of deal. So we have a really long URL, which is kind of like a running joke when people ask me what's REST, and I go really long URLs with a lot of JSON, and so here is our really long URL. Okay, now there's a lot of pieces to this. I'm first going to break it up into 3 big chunks, but even those chunks can then be broken up into more pieces. Okay, and so the 3 big chunks are what I call the site. It's going to be hard to, oh no, there's the site to about there. And then there's the route. I don't think this will work. Yeah, it won't work. The route keeps going just after this / all the way up to this about question mark. Okay, and then the chunk after that's called parameters. Okay, so site, route, parameters. So if we look at it there, we HTTP, right, / /gisweb.athena.bzt.ca is the site. Everything after that is route parameter stuff. Okay, but even within this, there are 2 pieces of information: protocol versus like a web address in that. And so what do we use to separate protocol from the actual server we want to talk to? Right, and so there is this HTTP. There could be other protocols, right? HTTPS, FTP, file. I put this one in here when I'm making a URL query, string to connect to a database. This is because I do Postgres a lot. This is how it starts often: JDBC : Postgres. Right. So from the protocol, you can kind of say, hey, I'm just doing plain text HTTP. I'm doing encrypted HTTP. I'm actually not doing HTTP at all. I'm doing FTP. Oh, I'm at home working on a lab testing, and I loaded the file locally. Right, I just double-clicked on my index file in my C work folder or something, and it loaded up in the browser. But if I go up and look at the address, I'll see like a file : thing going on. And if I'm working with databases and scripting, often I have to figure out one of these connection strings that's URL based, and JDBC : Postgres goes in there. It tells me I'm connected to Postgres, and I'm using a Java driver to do it. And so at the end also is this single / right after the web address finishes. And that little marker is a separator or parser for the site from the route. Okay, so the route is this next part: GIS, R Hewlett, 7130, scripts, EX4, PHP. Now PHP is very physical. There's a very physical link between the route and something on disk, usually. Now, there's other products: Vue, React, the Express framework for Node.js, JavaScript. They have routers too. Those routers are virtual. You'd be hard-pressed to find a directory in your project that looks the same as the route. When you have virtual routes, you don't have to worry about directories and files. They can be anything you want them to be, right? In that. But there is a very physical relationship between a route on a PHP website. Right there, so there probably is a directory called GISI, and there probably is a directory called R Hewlett, and there probably is a directory called 7130. There probably is a directory called scripts, and there probably is a file called ex4.php. When we're doing virtual routing, no, there doesn't have to be. Right, now I didn't put the question mark at the end of this because it's not part of the route, but it is a parser. Right, it separates out everything before the question mark is route stuff. Everything after the question mark is parameter. Okay, and that's how we break apart, right? So the very subtle one is the very first single / separates the site from the route. The question mark separates the route from the parameters. So if we look at the full parameter listing, we see username is equal to Rob, ampersand, user comments is equal to +love +GST +730. Okay, so there's actually 2 parsers going on here. The equal sign does something, and the ampersand does something. Okay, the equal sign separates the parameter from its value. It's like a key value pair. So you might say, well, why doesn't it use a colon like JSON does for separating key value pairs? Well, that's because this existed way before JSON was even thought of in that. So we have the parameter name, username, and then we have its value, Rob. So we can use most languages on their strings, they have some type of split function. Python has it, Java has it, PHP has it. They all have this ability to split a string based on a character. Our first split is the colon double forward slash. That doesn't happen too often in a URL. Trickier one is that first single forward slash at the end of the site. That's a little tougher. You probably have to use a technique called index of, find the very first single forward slash in that. Then you would use the question mark to rip apart the route from the parameters. Once you got the parameters, probably best to parse based on ampersand. I'm going to fix a thing here. I had a little typo. Okay, so equal separates the parameter from its value, and ampersand separates the one parameter from the other, first parameter from the second parameter. So all this information up to the ampersand belongs to the first parameter. All this stuff after the ampersand belongs to the second parameter. Now you may have more parameters. There might be another ampersand and another ampersand and another ampersand in that. But if you've done a little programming in 7010, or you're going to in the future, you're going to run into this problem where you're going to have to chop up strings or split them, right? But there will always be some character. Like the common thing in GIS is comma separated variables. So we have text files that are where the data is separated by comma, so we split on comma. In that, here we're splitting on a whole bunch of different characters because we're after things like, well, what's the protocol? Well, what's the site? Well, what's the route? Okay, what are all the parameters? Okay, split the parameters apart based using the ampersand. Okay, now once I got all the stuff for parameter 1, isolate it, split it on equal sign so I can separate out the parameter name from its value, key value pair. Okay, and so if we split on ampersand, right, we separate the parameters from each other, we'd end up with something like this. Username is equal to Rob, user comments. And then we can split those strings on equal sign and separate out the data, which is Rob, which is plus love plus GST plus 7130, right? In the end, that's the data that you're after. All the other stuff is the overhead of trying to have one really big long string, send it back to the server, have it chop it up and figure out what you were trying to do. What server, what route on the server, and that what parameters did you send that particular script or program, all right? And if it doesn't fail, then something should be coming back. But that's just giving you a detailed breakdown on these foot-long URLs that you're going to run into the more you work with web services and that. That's all for now.